Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming to this very special event. Before we get started, I want to introduce the Dean of Fordham Westchester, Anthony Davidson, who wants to greet everybody. Anthony was very magnanimous about allowing us to host this event here and making it work out properly together with his assistant, Ruth Diamond. So, Anthony.
Thank you, Jim. Just a couple of words. Whatever Jim Houlihan does is for good of people. So when he called me up and asked him if I could help him, it's an opportunity for me. You give me the opportunity, not the other way around. So I think you helped me by thinking of us to run something like this here. My school, the School of Professional and Continuing Studies, of which we have a great presence here, but also the other campus, personifies the Fordham mission of Cura Personalis, taking care of people, looking at the whole person. It's the most diverse school. We have more veterans than any other school. 25% of our population is veterans. So I can't think of the right word. I don't think honor does justice. I don't think privilege does justice. And especially in today's world where some of our values are called into question, and the things that we stand for, and the things that America represents across the world, the freedoms for people across the world. Given Billy's background and the challenges that he has had, it's just amazing that we're privileged to be able to be here tonight. Thank you so much, Billy, and thank you for coming.
All right, Dean, we did it together. So I'm not going to give a long introduction to Bill. I think everybody who's here got emails. Some of you saw his video. There were some flyers that were handed out. I just want to acknowledge Billy's brother, Jim, is going to help with the video part of the presentation. And Billy and Jim's mom, Eileen, is here. Eileen Keenan. And basically the connection with Billy and his family goes back to the 1970s. When I was a student at Fordham, we ran a program called People Active in Community Effort and did coaching and trips, Saturday trips and tutorial and that type of stuff. And then from that, the principal, John Burke, who recently passed away, asked if I would get involved with the school. They were starting up a school board, so I started doing that in my 20s, and Billy was a graduate of St. Thomas, a New York City detective who raised a family, went to school at night, educated himself, got a college degree, went to John Jay for criminal justice, and we became good friends, and one of the things we did from the school, we were just talking about outside, is we started this series, ran for about 10 years, of Irish music concerts on Sunday afternoon at Mount St. Vincent College in Riverdale. And, you know, we did the first one, we figured it out, and it was successful, and we did it for about 10 years till it ran its course. And Billy was the best person to have on a committee, his dad. He was always cheerful, positive, you know, can-do-it type of a guy. And so not only did we make I would say average $75,000, $85,000 a year for the school, which was big money for school in South Bronx in those days. But we had a heck of a lot of fun. And after the first event, we was kind of recapping. I said to Billy, I said, it was really great. He says, yeah, but I couldn't get a goddamn Manhattan at the bar. They didn't have any suite vermouth. So Mike O'Neill, who's here tonight, was on that committee, the concert committee, with a bunch of other people. I said to Mike the next year, I said, go out and get a small bottle of vermouth and get the biggest martini glass you can find. So, you know, when you run a concert, afterwards you're cleaning up and straightening out back, thanking the artists, and everybody's now down at the dining hall in Mount St. Vincent having dinner and drinking and dancing, and we're being entertained by a band called the Summer Wind, and guess whose band that was? It wasn't nepotism, he was qualified. And so when Billy finally came in, we had this bowl that looked like it had 50 Manhattans in it. And I said, Billy, we got you Manhattan this year. He goes, we got a Manhattan? I said, yeah, go over and see Mike O'Neill. He'll give it to you. And Mike had held it with two hands, so we were having a good laugh about that. So anyway, without further ado, Bill has gone through hell and back, and he's still here, and has found a way to find the bright side and not the dark side, and he's going to talk about it.
Thank you so much. I just want to say, on a very personal note, my dad was the finest man I ever met, and he loved Jim Houlihan. Absolutely loved him. So Jim has been a trusted friend and a confidant and a mentor to my family and to myself for going on 25 years now, but never more so than the last 5 years. And as you hear my story, it'll be abundantly clear why his friendship was so much needed. And when we needed him most, he was right there. And that just tells you who Jim Houlihan is. So every time I give a talk, I'm really driven by one guiding principle, and that is, what can I say that's going to make you better at what you do? Because I want you to view me as a resource. And what's most important is what you take away once you leave here, because my mission will be accomplished if you can take away something to put in your arsenal that's going to make you better personally and professionally. So in order to help facilitate that, I'm going to ask your indulgence. Go ahead and take out your cell phones and clear a notes page, because when I do my talks, I cover a lot of ground because I've crammed a lot of living into 51 years. So when you hear a thought or an anecdote or even just a word that piques your interest, jot it down, because at the end of my talk, you'll honor me by giving me a voracious Q&A, because in that way, we'll really get a bang for our buck, okay? So, with that said, I'd like to begin. As I look around the room, I see professionals, I see coaches, I see people from the world of education, the corporate world, and all of us have good days and bad days, wins and losses, happiness and sadness. It's been my experience that one of the key difference makers comes down to our decisions. It's one of the only things that we have control over. So that's going to be a recurring theme as I go through my story. So when I was a junior in high school at Albertus Magnus over in Rockland County, I made two decisions that would shape the course of my life. Number one, I made the decision as a 16-year-old junior that the only college that I wanted to attend was Fordham University. First and only choice. The second major decision I made as a 16-year-old junior was that I was going to go to Fordham on an Army ROTC scholarship. I desperately wanted to serve my country. You see, my father's father made a big decision in 1915. He left the family farm in the county of Leitrim in Ireland and came to America in search of a better life. In 1917, he found himself on the green fields of France, and he earned his citizenship the hard way at the Battle of the Meuse-Argonne in 1918. That was my grandfather. So I felt that I owed a debt to this country, and I wanted to serve as a lieutenant in the United States Army. So I arrived at Fordham, and alongside my regular coursework, I trained 3 days a week. And 6 weeks after the summer, after my sophomore year, and 6 weeks after the summer of my junior year, to be a second lieutenant in the United States Army. Now, every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, while I was at Fordham, I worked as a bass player in a busy Irish American party band. So when my roommates were out drinking $20 cheap draft beer and swill, I was working as a musician. So every Monday night, that was my night to party. And we used to go up to the Village Pub on Kingsbridge Avenue, and all of my roommates were broke. So I put them on scholarship. And I gotta tell you, it's amazing how attractive a guy like me looks when you throw 100 up on the bar. So in the blink of an eye, 4 years had passed, and that brings us to this first slide. This photo was taken on May 19th, 1989, the night before graduation. Together with 25 of my Army ROTC classmates, in a very solemn ceremony, I raised my right hand and took the oath of allegiance. I swore to defend this beautiful country of ours against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Mom and Dad pinned on my gold bars, and I was Second Lieutenant Bill Keenan. This was the manifestation of an Irish immigrant dream come true. My father's father served as a lowly private. 5 of his 6 sons enlisted in either the Army, Navy, or the Marine Corps as lowly privates. 72 years and 2 generations later, his grandson was bound for command. Now, the other handsome devil in the photo is a West Point cadet. That's my younger brother, John. He had just finished his 2nd year at the academy. 2 years later, he would graduate, be commissioned a 2nd lieutenant, and follow me into active duty. Now, my first stop in my 4-year odyssey as a soldier was the U.S. Army Airborne School. Next slide. One of the most physically grueling courses that you can take in the Army. And you finish with 5 qualifying jumps. So I became an Army paratrooper, left Columbus, Georgia, drove all the way across the country to the Pacific Northwest, and took up a post as a platoon leader with the 9th Infantry Division in charge of 35 soldiers. After my platoon leader time, I became a company executive officer, working as the right-hand man of a captain, a company commander. Now, those 2 jobs had me in the field every day, working with soldiers and getting my hands dirty. But then, at the end of that time, they bring you back to work as a battalion staff officer, the place where a hard-charging young lieutenant's enthusiasms go to die. All day long you sit and crunch numbers and write briefings to be given by more senior officers. But I found an escape hatch. You could apply for what they call the hardship tour, and your 2 choices were either Korea or Central America. Now, after 2 years of rain in the Puget Sound, Honduras sounded like a pretty good option. So I packed up a duffel bag in one hand, a guitar in the other, and I headed down for the lower latitudes. Now, I arrived in Honduras in January of 1992 to be a company XO again, a job that I had done, so I figured it'd be easy, nice, easy duty. Even though the conditions were quite Spartan, my home was a wooden hut with screens for windows and a corrugated tin roof. So I showed up there to be an XO, and the commander that I was working for suffered heat exhaustion after 1 week of my tour beginning. So at the age of 24 years and 7 months, I became the youngest company commander in the U.S. Army Southern Command with 150 soldiers. I was too young and too stupid to be scared. But being in Honduras showed me the greatness of my own country. On a weekly visit to the village of Comiagua, just a few clicks down the road. And getting together with the sisters and the Peace Corps workers who ran the orphanages and the old folks' homes, I saw true poverty for the first time. And it gave me an incredible appreciation for the generosity and the big-hearted nature of this country. So it was a wonderful experience. And before I knew it, my tour was over and I had to make a decision, either to stay on active duty, accept promotion to captain, and then immediately deploy to Somalia in East Africa, or I could get out and come home. New York, my family, and the Irish music had waited long enough. I came home. Next slide, please. I followed my passion and went to grad school for education. I went to St. Thomas Aquinas College, and within a year I was certified to teach. I taught history, Global 9 and 10 at my alma mater, Albertus Magnus High School. I coached varsity soccer, freshman basketball. I played guitar, piano, and sang as a one-man music ministry, directed the school play, and then in the evenings, pursued my master's degree, and every Friday and Saturday went out and played weddings with the summer wind. Somewhere along the line, I got married, had 2 children, and what you're seeing there is a picture of me in the North Rockland cafeteria. I switched over to the public schools in 1999, enjoying time with one of my students. Every day was a pure joy. I never felt like I went to work at all. But now, like most teachers, you never make enough money when you're first starting out. So like all good teachers, I had a second job. Now my second job was playing Irish American music 80 to 100 times a year. Go ahead, next slide. You see a guy with a guitar. Does he look like he's having a good time? Absolutely. So this was my life. 180 days in the classroom and then 80 nights a year playing music. I did what I did. I supported my family. I created a life for my wife where she only had to work 2 days a week so she could be home, devoting time to our 2 children. I became a competitive triathlete and a surfer in the year 2000. Fast forward, 1 slide. The wave. On September 14th of 2013, I drove my car to the town of Seagirt, New Jersey, on the shore, grabbed my longboard, waxed it up, zipped up my wetsuit, and paddled out for a couple hours in the ocean. There was a beautiful wave coming my way. I spun my board around, took a couple of hard, fast and furious paddles, and before I knew it, I was up and riding. Without any warning, I was in free fall, falling forward over the front of the board. My head hit the ocean floor with jarring force, brutal brunt force trauma. I was instantly paralyzed. My last conscious memory is of trying to get my legs underneath me to stand up and walk out of the ocean. I couldn't, and everything faded to black. There was one man in the ocean that day. His name was Eric Hoblitzel. He was stand-up paddleboarding. If he had been prone, laying on a surfboard, he never would have seen me. But from his vantage point, he saw my body come to the surface, and I was face down. So he knew right away that I was drowning. Got to me very quickly, dragged my lifeless body up onto the sand, screamed for his wife to call 911, and he started CPR. By the time paramedics got there, I had already flatlined. On the 6-mile drive from the beach to the hospital, I was defibrillated twice. The first shock to my heart achieved no response. The second shock brought back a faint pulse. I arrived at a level 2 trauma center, and a quick CT scan revealed the following diagnosis. I had fractured my C1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 of my cervical spine. So if you do me a favor, take one of your hands and put it on the center of the back of your neck. The bones that you're feeling, those are the ones that I broke. My diagnosis also revealed a bruised spinal cord at the level of C4. Now, in layman's terms, my prognosis was this. From the moment that my head hit the sand, I would be quadriplegic, much as you see me right now. And the secondary diagnosis was that for the rest of my life, I would likely have to use a tracheostomy and a ventilator machine in order to breathe. Jim, can I have a sip? Just going to take a quick pause. I know it's quite a bit to take in. Perfect, thank you. After the initial diagnosis, they performed a spinal fusion to fuse C5 and 6 together. After the surgery, I was placed in a medically induced coma. 2.5 weeks later, I woke to the dark night of my soul. Next slide. This is the reality that I woke up to 2.5 weeks after my injury. The metallic brace that you see on my head is called a halo. It is attached with 4 metal screws that are drilled into your skull. I still bear one of the indentations as a permanent reminder of that period of time. The intended purpose of the halo is to completely immobilize the head and neck to allow the bones time to heal. Coming out of my neck, you see a trach tube. Because of my paralysis, I'm paralyzed from mid-chest down. The likelihood was that I was never going to be able to breathe independently again. I was taken to Helen Hayes to begin physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. And every day, I tried to put on a brave face as I encountered hundreds of visitors, most of whom I ended up having to try to console because they burst into tears at the sight of me. And every night, despite being given enough Ambien and Trazodone to knock a baby elephant on its backside, my grief and anguish was so intense, so deep, so profound, that I could never sleep. So with only the sound of the ventilator, I cried out to God for mercy. And mercy specifically meant a peaceful passing. That's what I cried out for. I felt that I could be of no good, no service. I could only be a burden to my children, to my wife, to my family and friends. But instead of an easy way out, I got a reason to live. 8 weeks after my injury, I received a phone call from a man named Stephen McDonald. In 1986, Stephen was on foot patrol in Central Park, and he was shot by a 15-year-old. 3 bullets coursed their way through his body, and the 3rd bullet severed his spinal cord. Stephen was, as I am. Several months after his injury, after his wounding, both Stephen and his wife Patty Ann, who's in the picture with him, along with their son Connor, Stephen and Patty Ann forgave the young man who shot Stephen. Stephen spent the next 30 years of his life until his passing in January of 2017, going out and speaking about the healing power of forgiveness. And he wanted to talk to me. At the lowest moment of my life, Stephen McDonald spoke to me for 10 minutes. He said, "Billy, there's a reason why you survived. Your work is not done. God has a plan for you. And when your rehab is over, when you're strong enough, you're going to find a way back to life because you have this role to play and you are going to contribute again." And then he ended the conversation with a couple of words that I'll never forget. He said, "Billy, don't ever forget that in the end, there will be life." A couple of days later, my principal, a fellow Fordham alum named Mike Gill, was in my room on one of his many visits, and out of nowhere I looked at him and said, "Mike, in 1 year, I'm going to be back in the classroom." Now, keep in mind the guy with the halo, all right, and the breathing tube. That guy was going to go back to work as a teacher full time. And he humored me, patted my arm and said, "Absolutely, Billy, whenever you're ready, you're more than welcome." So then the work really began. Next slide. If you see the dark-haired woman in the photo, that's my speech therapist. She became the most important person in my life because in order for me to realize this wild dream of going back to teach, I had to be able to breathe independently. So we started with the most simple task. I went off the vent for 1 minute and tried to blow up a balloon. I was able to puff 3 or 4 times, and then I was so exhausted and so out of breath, I had to go back on the ventilator. And I kept at it and kept working day after day after day towards that goal. By Christmas time, I was able to come off the vent for 30 minutes. And then my speech therapist said, "All right, now the real work begins." And every single day, she would take me down to the first floor auditorium and said, "You want to teach, Billy? I'm going to sit 20 rows back, and you're going to teach me." So I would give mini lectures for 30 minutes. Causes of World War I, causes and effects of the French Revolution. And I'm sure we still have audio. So if you're ever having trouble sleeping some night, we'll put it up on a podcast. 4 months after my injury, in January of 2014, against all medical prediction, they took the trach tube out, turned off the ventilator, and I've been breathing independently ever since. Now, I knew right at that moment that my pathway back to teaching, I knew it was going to happen. There was not a doubt in my mind. And just when all appeared to be smooth sailing, that I'd gone through the worst of my suffering, there was another wave of suffering that waited for me, that made the spinal cord injury seem like child's play. Divorce rates in the spinal cord injury community are roughly 90%. And it makes sense. It's understandable. I'm a reasonable, rational guy. For any spouse to have to look at this and think that this is the life that I signed up for, it's a tough one. It's a monster for anyone to deal with. And if my wife had simply come to me and said, Billy, I love you, but I can't live my life this way. Let's get divorced. If I'd been afforded that courtesy, that simple kindness, that would have been a humane thing. And I would have understood it. But that's not what happened. What happened was I became the victim of abuse on several levels. There was a huge 2-day Irish festival called Keenan that was created to raise money for my 24-hour care. As of this day, the festivals were May 3rd and 4th of 2014. As I sit before you right now, I have no idea how much money was raised or where the money is. I know that when I came home from rehab in August of 2014 and asked for the money so I could get an overnight aide to be in the room with me, that I was told that the money was not for me, that it was for my wife and children. I was told that I put myself in the chair and I was not going to be allowed to take the family down with me. Finally, and most egregiously, my physical care suffered so much that by the end of the summer, my 72-year-old mom was compelled to take over as my primary caregiver and protector. And if it hadn't been for my mom, I probably wouldn't be here today. My mom, Eileen, is with us tonight. Now back to that recurring theme of decisions. I had a huge decision to make. Do I allow the darkness to consume me and to beat me down and to defeat me? Or do I choose the harder right? After everything I'd been through, I was going to go to the harder right. So on Tuesday, September 8th, I made a decision. I woke up, got dressed with the help of 2 caregivers, and at 7 a.m., I rolled down my driveway onto a handicapped accessible bus and took the 15-minute ride to North Rockland High School and re-entered the classroom for the first time since my spinal cord injury 2 years previously. By going back to teach, I went from being completely needy to actually being necessary. And I saw the impact immediately in the lives of my students, but even more so in my fellow faculty members. Very difficult for a teacher to complain when they get a load of me. I got the gift of being able to teach for nearly 2 full years. And in March of 2017, I contracted a urinary tract infection that turned into sepsis. In a near fatal incident, I lapsed into a 3-day coma and woke up in the hospital. And what I saw when I woke up was my mom, my brother Jim, John, my brother, a couple of aunts and cousins, all gathered around my bed in prayer. And I thought, oh dear, this is not good. The next day, I asked my doctor, when can I go back to teaching? And he gathered some of the other physicians, and they said, Billy, I'm really sorry to break the news, but your teaching days are over. You've pushed your body as far as it can go. For your health, for your survival, you have to stop. And it was a crushing blow, because the very thing that brought me back to life was now taken from me. And I had another decision to make. Do I sit in a room feeling sorry for myself, getting lost in that abyss of self-pity? Why God? Why me? That's not what happened. I acknowledged that this horrible event happened, and then I asked myself, what are you going to do with it? And I realized I'm not strong enough to go out and teach 5 days a week, but I am strong enough to go out and speak 1 or 2 days a week and share a message of hope to people who feel beaten down, to share a message of perspective to people who feel beaten down. And on the subject of perspective, I'm going to ask my brother Jim to join me up here for a quick second. The spinal cord injury took everything from me. The only part of my body that I'm actually able to move voluntarily is my left arm. And this is the extent of the range of motion that I have. Just about 6 inches. So here's your takeaway. My mind, my voice, and my will were enough to get me back in the classroom for 2 full years. My mind, my voice, and my will were enough to bring me here to get to speak to you tonight. My mind, my voice, and my will are going to be enough for me to continue to bring this message to as many people as are kind enough to listen. When you leave here tonight and you go back to your professional and personal lives, and when challenges come at you, and inevitably they will, and when the forces of life all seemed arrayed against you, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember the man in the wheelchair and this visual. You're able-bodied and able-minded. There is absolutely nothing that you cannot do. Imagine the possibilities of what you can achieve. Imagine the adversity that you can fight through, that you can withstand. It's a beautiful possibility to contemplate. And back to the decision. Folks, in the end, the decision is yours. Thank you so much. Q&A, oh yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Billy is going to be kind enough to answer any questions you may pose. I'm sure there's no one he can't answer. I would just say to myself, the perspective that I've learned over the last so many years that Bill and his family have suffered through this, and his family has suffered too. I mean, they've given tremendously of their lives to help the son, the brother, the nephew, the whatever, is that the message that Bill talks about being positive and not succumbing to defeat is so strong. It's an amazing thing. And I when I sit here tonight and when I think about Bill, I said, you know, I don't have the right to be stressed out or mad about anything. Whatever it is nothing compared to what this man has gone through, and is a great example. And so besides the question and answers, I want everybody here to think about schools, hospitals, churches, veteran organizations, police groups, whatever your line is from, to get them in front of people, because it's the most powerful message I've ever heard in my entire life.
Wow. Thank you, Jim. The floor is open. In the back, yes.
Yes, Mr. Keenan, how long?
Julia, can you just stand up and be a little
Yeah.
How long have you
Would you want to come up to the mic?
Oh, okay. The question is, how long have I been doing these talks? Okay, well, when I contracted that bout of urinosepsis, it was March of 2017, and that forced my retirement. So it took me a couple of months to convalesce. And then I went through that why to what paradigm. What am I going to do with it? So when the academic year started in September of 17, I asked my colleagues at North Rockland if they'd be good enough to allow me their classroom. So I've only been doing it for just about a year.
Very good.
Just a year, yeah.
Very good.
Thank you so much. Yeah, go ahead.
I know you like to teach, and did you ever consider like online college teaching?
It's a great question. You know, I've been so busy working to hone this craft that teaching online is something that I've never considered. You know, I've been really focused on developing this, but you know what I would love to do more than anything is sit in a classroom as a student. I still feel that there are history courses, things that I have yet to learn. So, yes.
When you speak in front of high school students, what's their takeaway? Because I personally, listening to your story, is an emotional takeaway. How are they reacting?
Well, there's a couple of things. They're fascinated by my life as a soldier and what made me want to do that. And then the athletic piece of my life. So they're fascinated by those things. And one of the big takeaways that I try to leave them with is put down the cell phone, put down the Xbox controller, and engage in real life. You know, that's a big one for me. And then, of course, again, the idea that when you're an adolescent, you have this mindset that everything is a huge thing. And again, when they see me, the 12th graders, 17-year-olds, my message does sink in. Absolutely. Keep them coming. Anything. Yes?
Since you obviously were an athlete, do you get to go in the water and pool or some activities?
Now, here is where the subject of post-traumatic stress disorder kicks in. Because the water between triathlons and surfing was such a huge part of my life, I can't even look at the ocean. Yeah, You know, the last 5 years, it's been a process of letting go. I've had to let go of the musician. That was probably the toughest. I've had to let go of the ocean and my triathloning. So the water is something that would be a tough one for me. But of all the things that I've had to let go of, the music was the hardest because it brought me the most joy. Yes?
Has your faith become stronger, weaker, and your relationship with God, how's that?
I'm so glad you asked. I really am. When I gave my talk, during that portion where I said that I was crying out to God for mercy, I was much more specific in my prayer. In the Passion Gospel, when Jesus says on the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me?" That was my prayer, because I truly felt abandoned by God. And that call with Stephen McDonald, because I truly believe that he was a living saint. And I felt that my cry to God was heard and that he was sent. That he was sent to deliver that message. So when you have a traumatic injury like this, and it's so catastrophic, there's one of two ways you can go. You can reject God, or you can go the way I went. I was a Catholic before my injury. After my injury, I became a Christian. And what that means to me is that I simply pursue Christ. I pursue him. You know? And when I hear the Gospels, boy, do I listen hard. I listen. So my faith has deepened. And even one of the hardest things that I've struggled with in my faith life is the concept of forgiveness, because of how I was victimized by people that were once very close to me. And that's one that I struggle with in my faith life. But the short answer is, my faith has only deepened. And thank you for that question. Jim.
Billy, I don't know if you remember, but I want to remind you, Billy was a big Met fan, and when he was a kid, he used to go to Met games and sit in the dugout before, because his dad knew.
My father's best friend was the chief electrician at Shea.
Okay, so after his injury, some of you may know John Cirillo, who's a good friend of mine, who's a Fordham grad, teaches at Fordham, and has worked in the sports PR business, and PR business, but specializing in sports. He does other stuff. And he was able to reach out to Jay Horwitz, I think just retired,
Yes.
as director of PR for the Mets. So tell them about what the Mets did.
It was, they set us up for Father's Day, and I was in a nursing home in upstate New York, and the iPhone rang, and my soon-to-be ex picked up the phone, and it was Jay Horwitz. So I was out of my mind. Give me the phone, I want to talk to Jay. So he invited us down for a Father's Day game, and he said, I want you to come to the clubhouse. You're going to meet some of the guys. And my younger son was a die-hard, long-suffering Mets fan, just like his dad. So we're waiting just outside the clubhouse, and coming down the hallway off the field after warm-ups is Daniel Murphy. And my son Keenan was just spastic with excitement. Daniel Murphy comes over, high-fives everybody, hugs Keenan, poses for the pictures, then he goes back in, and the next one out was David Wright, the captain. Keenan was wearing his David Wright jersey. David Wright comes over, signs everything, poses for pictures. So it was just an amazing day. Jim gave me such a gift that day, but even more than me, I'll never know what it was like for my sons to lose the man that was their father, the man that they knew, because I coached travel baseball. I taught my sons how to swim. I was omnipresent in their lives. Got them off the bus every day. And then this injury happened, and for 11 months, I was gone. So the scars it left for them, the pain that they felt was alleviated for that beautiful day that Jim gave us.
Well, John gave it, and Jay Horowitz gave it.
Yes.
I connected them. But the other thing I remember is that Ron Darling sent you an email, and I have a copy of it. I don't have, it's not on my phone because I have a long memory. But he basically sent an email to Billy, and I remember reading to you on the phone, and it basically, said that, as for the fact that you're a long-suffering Met fan, there's some things that I can't help you with.
Right.
Something to that effect.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you see your children now? What's your relationship with them?
They live with their mom, and I see them every other weekend. And there's pure love, nothing but love, which has been incredibly difficult given what my soon-to-be ex-wife and her family did with regards to the Keenan Strong funds. There's been a tremendous amount of negativity, and I've done everything in my power to not speak ill of their mother and her family.
So just to give you context, it's estimated that approximately $750,000 was raised at these fundraisers. The one in Rockland County, I think there were estimated a crowd of 5,000 people turned out.
That's right, Jim.
And almost all the donations were made in cash. And I got one of our attorneys and Lynn's accounting firm to donate their time to set up accounting and do the legal work, set up a 501c3. No information was ever filed, tax return or anything. The Attorney General's office was contacted. They refused to investigate the matter. The Rockland DA was contacted. He decided he didn't want to be bothered investigating the matter. So, we all have this assumption that there's justice in the world, but it's fleeting and hard to find in some cases. And in Billy's case, it's just mind-boggling that someone wouldn't have the common decency to, at least take a look. But that's what happened.
And because it was all cash, nobody would touch it. There was no paper trail. But we do have text messages now from my wife's sister to one other member of the committee who they thought was loyal to their side and ended up turning over the text message to us that 3 days after the event, they were at 750,000 and still counting. So we're really talking about the better part of $1 million. And as of right now, because I went back to work 5 days a week on 4 wheels, my wife's lawyer instructed her to work only 2 days. So I was the moneyed spouse. When I retired, I was in arrears, $30,000 to $40,000 in child support. And now they've garnished my Social Security wages. So, I have to kind of smile and laugh because it sounds like I'm talking about somebody else. But again, it's consistent with the theme that I brought here tonight. It's all about moving forward. With all the darkness that's occurred in my life, every morning I'm happy to wake up. And I'm not depressed. I am happy. And I know that I'm contributing. And I love my life, even though it has to be lived in this chair. So I've found a way to move forward. And that's the message that I want to bring for as long as I'm allowed to, as long as my health will allow me to. That's a message that I want to bring to as many people as I can. Other questions?
Just one more. Are you still in rehab? Are you still?
I attend a spinal cord gymnasium called Push to Walk out in Oakland, New Jersey. And I go there every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So that's my support group.
Where do you live, Billy?
I live in Rockland County, New City, in the home that I shared with my family. Yeah, Mike.
Are the boys playing any musical instruments? Because we'd love to hear you singing again.
Oh my goodness. That's going to be a tough one. Although I did bring with me some copies of a CD that I recorded. Kind of a funny story. I went into the studio with 2 members of my band in 2012 on Easter break, and we recorded the basic tracks for 10 songs, and I played guitar, tin whistle, electric bass, and I sang. And the keyboard player did his thing, and the drummer. And I always said, okay, I'll go back and finish it. I'll go back and finish it. But my performance schedule got so busy that I never got to finish it. And then I got hurt. 20 of my Irish musician friends went in the studio, got the tapes, and added flutes and fiddles and accordions and background vocals and finished the CD. And I think I have a few copies. Yeah. So if you do want to hear my voice, it's still there. It's absolutely there. Yeah.
Any last question? Because Bill has to get home by 8 o'clock. So before you get a chance to go up and say hello and personally thank him, we were able to record tonight, and anyone who wants a copy, we'll be able to email it to you or make you a hard copy if you want a DVD. And anyone who wants to put a picture of Bill up on your refrigerator, remind yourself to don't give in to the dark side. The little things we have to deal with, we'll give you a picture. Really, thank you so much.
Jim, thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
You a Jersey boy?
Am I?
Yeah, were you born in Jersey?
No,
You
no,
sound
no.
like you did.
Oh, really?
Especially surfing.
Oh, but yeah, that was the closest spot.
Yeah.
Was like to win for the home team. Thanks, Jimmy.
Hi, Billy. So
Yes.
I'm Mary Connor. We met
Yes,
on the
Mary.
web. So I have a few places I'd like to see if I could,
Get me
you
into,
to.
yeah.
But how far, since you live in Rockland County, how far would you come?
Right now, about 2 hours.
2 hours from Rockland.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And you have to be back by 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock's the witching hour, yeah. Yeah, my caregivers come and we go through a nightly routine
I'm
of
sure.
getting this body
I
back
just
to
have a
bed.
few thoughts, so I'm just going to do a little investigating.
Oh, I'd love
And
it.
your email is on the...
My email's on the
so I
on the
can
flyer.
email you direct if
Yes,
I have
yes,
something
yes.
that I think you might like.
Yeah, and
Alright.
even the best way is text me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
because I normally have a cell phone that's on like a rubber arm
Oh,
that I
cool.
can see in front of me.
All right. So
Yeah.
let me do my thing and I'll see what we
That's
can
great,
do.
Mary.
All right.
Oh.
It's nice to meet you. It's really wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's really wonderful.
Great, Mary. Thank you for making the time. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
How you doing? Rob the Jersey.
Rob, how you
Nice
doing?
to meet you, Billy.
Great to meet
I
you.
was struck about how great your family's been to you, because the strength that you had seems like they mirrored it too. And it makes, that family thing.
I wouldn't have made it without them.
I know. Sorry
Mom,
about your spouse, but the mom and
Mom
I
saved
have
my
an Irish
life.
Mom, so
she saved my life.
I know. That was very powerful.
She absolutely said. And my
Brought
brothers.
you in, and she kept you in, whether you liked it or not.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. And she's still. I still can't
How old is your mom now?
get 75. Yeah. I can't get rid of her. She's so good.
No,
It's
no.
Rob, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Anyhow, great story.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was my pleasure.
I don't have many questions. I just want to tell you that I really admire you.
Thank you. That means a lot. Please don't cry. Don't cry. Don't be sad. I'm not. I know how you feel. Believe me. I cried. Right? Well then, you know what? I've done my job tonight. Because this is gonna have a beautiful effect on the way you live your life. Right? So that's my gift. And I just give it with pure love in my heart. I really do. Oh, thank you. Oh, you will. You will. Yes, yes. Grab a copy of this. My brother's got it.
Okay, we'll get it.
All right,
and
good.
I want to meet you again.
Awesome. We will.
We're gonna figure out a way he can autograph you.
Hi, Brittany.
Put a pen in his mouth. He'll make an X.
Because I just lost some people. Yeah, well, this week, that's bad. Yeah, so it's really hard for me.
I know.
I'm so happy I
You must be reeling though.
Yeah. You know, I've had like a good cry over it, but it's not, I'm like out of sight, out of mind because I'm not
I know.
there. But you were just amazing.
Oh, thank you so much.
inspirational. I'm
That's
so
awesome.
happy I was here. I didn't know if I was going to make it, but I'm just so happy I made it.
Brittany, thank you so much. I'm so glad you did.
You're a true inspiration. I knew your story because I worked at the foundation.
Right. Yeah,
And you're wonderful. Keep doing what you're doing.
I'm going to.
Reaching the high school students and anyone else is just what you do in your voice, what you say and how you say it just reaches people right to the heart.
Awesome.
Stay
Awesome.
stronger for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hello, ladies. Barbara and Barbara. Wow. How did you find out about this? Oh, you do? Okay. Oh, it's great. Thank you so much. Please do. Don't stop praying. God knows I need it. Thank you. Thank you. Where you guys live? Where are you from? New City? Oh, no way. Where do you go to school?
Well, I go to school, so I'm in grad school.
Okay.
But I went to teaching college.
Oh, really? Oh my God.
Do you ever stop by?
Oh yeah. I love the hot buffet.
Same. I always get the food there.
It's ridiculously good. Oh, that's great. Great to meet you both. Thank you for being here. Hey.
We love to talk.
Oh, thank
so
you.
much. It was so hopeful.
Really?
Yes, it did give that. Yeah, we loved it. And I'm hoping we can pass it on. I hope we can get other
Good.
So you can go within a certain radius?
Yeah, within about 2 hours, I'm
You can
good.
drive within 2 hours and then you're good for a good hour?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I'm willing, more than willing.
Okay.
Happy to do it. Happy to do it.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Awesome, Billy.
All right, bro. Yeah, man.
So, you think you can come talk to me?
I would love it.
Brother, maybe before tomorrow to see you guys soon.
Oh yeah.
If I
Yeah.
can make it happen, maybe we can get the whole department.
The athletic department?
We'll see. I gotta talk to the AD. He was a Marine, so I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
come on. That's a natural. That's a natural.
It may be down the road, like they have speakers lined up.
I'm sure they do.
But
Oh, okay.
I think our guys live there. And
Yeah.
they don't realize how good they have it. I tell them that all the time. Like, should be thankful today.
Absolutely. Good. We'll make it happen. Stay in touch.
Our guys, and then RTC.
That'd be great. I would love it. I would love it. Take care, bro.
So just to recoup what we were talking about before, I live across the street from McDonald right now.
Oh, you're
He's
kidding
in
me.
Patty Ann's apartment in Long Beach.
Yeah.
She's right across from the church.
Oh my God.
Pipe band we played his wife this summer. And his wife, Katie, she used to come see my band, Tabasco Road, all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's a kind of a small circle there.
Oh my God,
I
yeah.
share your view that he's a modern-day Saint Stephen.
Without a doubt. And I've become, in the last few months, Patty Ann and I have become very good friends.
Yeah, this guy who's in the band who I carpool with, this young guy.
Oh, Danny, yeah.
So
Yeah, I know Danny.
Yeah, so you drive some, right? So can I take a photo and send it to Danny?
Yeah.
They'll get a kick out of it.
Get somebody to take it.
I'll take it.
Yeah, please.
Right, okay. Thanks.
1, 2, 3. Lovely.
Patty Ann will see that. She'll go crazy.
Oh, yeah, great. Well, I mean, I think, thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
I'd love for you to speak to the band.
Oh, I'd love to.
Maybe we could work that out to, Andy, Andy's our pipe major.
I know.
Yeah.
Andy's the best.
Yeah.
The best. What a great guy.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello. I'm great.
My name is Veronica.
Veronica.
Hi, I'm a student here in Fordham.
Oh, okay.
And I was taking a class, and something must have brought me down here because I said I need to warm up my suit before class ends, right? For a little dinner.
Yeah.
And I come and I bump into this great meeting you guys got going here.
Oh, my God.
And I get to meet you. I read a little bit about you, and from that little bit, I got inspired. I said I have to stand in line and speak to him. I'm
Oh,
gonna
my
get in
God.
trouble, but that's okay.
That's all right.
It's well worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what? God bless you.
Thank you, Veronica.
And
Thank you.
it seems like everything is going to be a success from here on out. And you know what? Things happen to us. We may not understand why, but that man upstairs understands why he does what he does. He creates our path. And you know what?
Absolutely.
It is what it is. You seem like you're very amazing and you're great. I have a lot of friends that are gym teachers. I work in the school district, and I'm pretty sure they would love to hear from you.
I'll be there.
New Rochelle.
Good, Veronica. That's great. That's great.
Pleasure meeting
God bless you.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah, Jim.
His dad was Irish immigrant on Vane's Bar at 198.
Tom, very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. He's also on the board of Fordham Prep.
Oh, wow.
Make his schedule to get that.
Have some chats with
Oh, I'd love to. Actually, my son goes to Albertus Magnus, and Bob Gombrecht is the president. Yeah, I know. And
So you've met Bob?
yes, Bob and I are working on an event for me to speak to the entire student body with Patty Ann McDonald.
And you know, he was mentioned to me, my son Michael went to Fordham Prep. He and two of his classmates committed suicide. And it's still a problem. And so he said, especially these kids who are
Borderline or...
On the edge.
Yeah. I kind of thought about that. If you had to think of your dream speech, where you would present it, what would that be when you think about that?
Wow. I wasn't thinking that big, but
Who would be your audience? Who would be the audience you would say, hey, this is what I really want to do? It's young people, I would think.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's where I can have the most impact. I really do. Even through college, like upper adolescence through college years. Yes.
Kevin Lee, who just left, he was talking about, he's the Fordham baseball coach.
Yes.
He said he's going to go talk to the athletic director about trying to do something with the athletes in ROTC.
And ROTC.
And
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, maybe it'd make him work a little harder." He goes, "You got that one?"
Yeah,
And we were at
I
the
hope so.
university together. I graduated in '88.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So we were rambling around there.
Oh, yeah.
For a couple of years.
Where, did you hang out at the Lantern or Clark's?
You know, I was one of those guys who I went to school at 8 o'clock, was my classes, done by 11, out to work.
Yes, yes.
My dad passed away when I was entering college.
Okay.
So it was.
So you were working.
I had a bunch of other siblings.
And I was gigging every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Well, I spent a lot of time over in Riverdale and,
Okay.
you know, down in 38th Street, 31st Street. So I was just Tony Malone's, all those places.
Oh, yeah, the Manhattan College bars.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
Pinewood.
Yes.
Dorney Malone. Oh,
Like
yeah.
yourself, when the age was like 18, I was about to turn 18. They turned to 19.
That's right,
And I was
that's
about to
right.
turn 19, they turned to 21.
Turned to 21. That's right, we just missed it. That's right. Oh, that's great.
So listen, it's great to meet you.
Awesome.
Great job.
And it's Tom?
Tom, you there?
Tom, great to meet you. Okay.
So I'll reach out to some folks as well.
Awesome.
You know, see if we can get something else.
Spread the word. I'd love to come out and talk.
Good, you got it. You deserve it.
Thank you so much.
You got it, Jim. Take care.
Yeah, we'll do it now. Yeah. Let me do one of just you two. And then, that was great. I'll get a shot of you and your mom and your brother. I won't take as not nearly as long as we did in the hall.
Right.
Okay, now one more, just the two of you. Come, if you can, come a little closer. Yeah. Sure. Right. There we go. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thanks a lot, Bruce. I will, absolutely.
I did.
Good, Mike.
So,
Great to see you again. All right, man.
Team Bill.